What up, y'all? Let's get into the closing arguments for the Jonathan Majors case. So Jonathan Majors decided not to take the stand. I don't think he really needed to. The judge then clarified to everybody that counts 1 through 3 pertain to the assault inside of the car, and count 4 is the incident outside of the car. Most likely this portion here where he's putting her back into the vehicle. Priya Chaudhry stepped up and decided to lead the closing arguments, and baby, she put on a show. She leaned heavily into the racism and profiling involved with this case. Priya started off like this. Jonathan Majors is innocent and Grace Jabari is a liar. Why are you here? You're probably wondering why you just spent the last 2 weeks of your life to see what is obvious to anyone interested in the facts. Grace Jabari was not hurt when she got out of that car. Jonathan Majors is innocent and Grace is a liar. There's no mystery about what happened in the car. The driver told us. He put her back in the car because they're in the middle of traffic. She keeps grabbing him. He tells her to leave him alone. He then even helps her out of the car and walks her safely to the sidewalk. She ripped his coat with her bare hands. There's no mystery about what happened after Jonathan Majors finally escaped. She was revenge partying and charging champagne to the man she was angry with. She had a ball, smoking illegally in the club with her right hand, holding champagne with her left. Grace bends reality, and these prosecutors contort themselves to keep up. They bought her white lies, her big lies, her pretty little lies, and the prosecution bought white lies. His fear of what happens when a black man calls 911 came true, and now we're here. The police made up their mind on sight. If you believe Grace, then you believe he beat her badly in the car, in his name, and called 911 on himself. If you believe Grace, then Jonathan Majors caused these injuries and then told 911 about these injuries, and then told the police about the argument they had the night before. You probably have your own list of the greatest lies that Grace has told. You don't get to destroy people's lives with your fantasies. Grace is obviously an emotional person, but she cannot distinguish between her lies and her feelings. This case is not about reporting abuse. I want to end this nightmare for Jonathan now, immediately, and as quickly as possible. It's just fake. Nothing she says makes sense. Nothing she says is medically possible. Prosecutors have a lot of power. They decide who should be criminals and who should be the victim. Grace is not on trial, but maybe she should be. Look, then the camera pans and Jonathan Majors is now crying. So you got Jonathan Majors crying, and then Priya starts to choke up a little bit. I'm going to act like I'm Priya. His fear when a black man calls 911 came true, and now we're here. You are here to end this nightmare for Jonathan Majors. You are here to see what's obvious, and what evidence shows is Jonathan Majors is innocent and seen. She goes to sit down and she hugs Jonathan Majors. The end. Hey, yo, Priya was dropping a little bars in there with them white lies, pretty little lies, big lies. Hey, Priya was dropping them bars. Now, I'm surprised she didn't go harder into Grace being arrested. I also wonder why she didn't explain the reason he kept trying to keep her in the car was for her safety. That should have been hammered home, because when you find out that charge number 4 is about what happened outside of the car, honestly, I probably would have spent less time on the racism, and I would have spent more time about how she's a danger to herself. I would have said, look, Grace Jabari was not in a good mental state that night, all right? She already had 1 to 2 margaritas at dinner. Boom, I would have threw that video on. And then, you know, she sees an unfortunate text that doesn't prove that Jonathan Majors was cheating. And, you know, she lost it. She got upset. She was not in her right state of mind. Jonathan Majors knew that. So when he tried to escape, he wanted to make sure that she stayed in the car, and he wanted to make sure that she did not get hit by traffic. Now, what if this would have went a different way, and as he's running out, she gets hit by a car? Then there's a different case going on. This man was trying to take care of this woman and keep her in the car and separate himself from the violence that she was inflicting onto him. And that's why she got arrested. That's what I would have did. Because as we get to the end of this, we're going to find out that the jury is stuck. They don't understand the legalities of these charges. Okay, we're going to come back to that. Let's get into the prosecution. I'm going to try to do my best prosecution voice. Control, domination, manipulation, and abuse. You guys didn't see the evidence? She was attacked. She didn't want to report to the police. She didn't call 911. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with appreciating that Jonathan Majors called 911. This case is the people versus Jonathan Majors, not Grace versus Jonathan Majors. Grace was not some scorned woman seeking vengeance over Jonathan cheating. This isn't consistent with her testimony. This is not a revenge plot to ruin Jonathan Majors' life, career, to take everything away from him. The events and injuries were not consistent with a premeditated plan of revenge. Grace did not even implicate Jonathan Majors right away. She told the police she didn't know how she sustained her injuries. She went through days of grueling pain. Why would she put herself through this? For what? What did she have to gain? Now, she didn't pretend she was okay with being cheated on. All she was focused on was her devastation about the infidelity. When Jonathan Majors had behaved in a way that you're hearing previously, in public, he had told her not to speak about it to anyone. That would ruin the relationship. So Grace understood this. How did this impact her? She didn't tell. We have a video here that's showing Jonathan Majors picking up another human being as if she was a doll and shoving her back into the car in Chinatown. The sole witness was the driver, who claimed he had a feeling Grace hit Jonathan Majors despite not seeing anything. The driver is not a credible witness because he was being paid by Jonathan Majors. He also said he was looking straight up the road. The driver is biased to the man who paid him. Yo, this is wild because the prosecution just got up here and threw their own witness under the bus. The driver was not Jonathan's witness. The driver was y'all witness. How you gonna call him up there and now say he not credible? This is crazy. So they pretty much closed out trying to get the jury to believe Grace, who testified for 4 days, having to relive that pain over and over and over again. So who do y'all think won closing arguments? So the case was sent to the jury for deliberation, but the jury is not sure about the charges. So the court adjourned for the day and is expected to be back tomorrow around 2:15. My speculation is they're stuck on count number 4 when he put her back in the car because technically, legally, you can't just pick somebody up and put them in the car because, you frustrated with them. You can't legally do that. Now, some of y'all were in my comments on Twitter and was like, he was trying to defend himself. That's why he's putting her in the car. Well, unfortunately, his lawyer did not argue self-defense. So it's too late now. You can't even present that to the jury. The jury, when they're looking at the charges, they're seeing a human being put their hands on another human being, picked her up, and put her in the car. Unfortunately, maybe he should have just ran and not tussled with her because I don't know, man. You just never know with a jury. And unfortunately, his lawyers didn't paint the picture that this was self-defense. Now that I'm thinking, they didn't even paint the picture that she attacked him. Now that I'm thinking about it, they never brought up the fact that she scratched him. I don't remember those pictures coming into evidence. So they didn't do a really good job saying, hey, she was going crazy in that back seat fighting him, so he was trying to get out. He knew she was going crazy, so this is him trying to keep her in the car from hurting herself. I think if they would have spent it that way, maybe you can have a jury thinking, okay, maybe he's just using self-defense, or maybe he's using an appropriate amount of force to keep her from harming herself because her state of mind was erratic at the time. That's what they should have did. So before the jury left, they wanted a detailed explanation of each charge, the video on Canal and Lafayette, and they wanted the 911 call. Now, I don't know what the 911 call has to do with anything as far as these charges go because the focus is the car. He wasn't accused of assaulting her at the house, so I'm not sure why they want the 911 call. That's interesting to me. I've been saying from the start, you just never really know what's going on with the jury. Everybody has different backgrounds. Everybody sees things differently. So we may see a man fleeing and running, and someone in the jury might say, well, before he ran, he did push her into the car, and maybe he had no right to do that. Maybe he's breaking the law. So this is what happens when you have different people with different thoughts. But those were the closing testimonies. The jury is due back by 2:15 tomorrow. I think we're going to have a verdict tomorrow. I'm sure they're tired of this. I'm sure they don't want this to spill over into Monday. So hopefully they can have a verdict within 2 hours, 3 hours before 5 p.m. But that's all I have for today. Who do y'all think won closing arguments? Peace out.